Hey, good evening, everybody. This is Meredith Lego, and I'm doing some videos on the mechanics of ascension through the ascension of our consciousness. And if you're new to the channel, I've been fortunate to receive some really great learnings by tuning into beings who have basically are kind of tuning into higher consciousness, basically. So beings who are sort of past the incarnational process in order to essentially learn about the mechanics behind this. And I do this during meditation or after meditation by essentially meditating and being able to connect and then basically telepathically receive some information based upon questions that I ask. And in this particular video, I'm going to be talking about a combination of a couple topics based upon questions that I asked. One is essentially what is the concept of the 0 point, which I've referenced in past videos, but it's really what I learned about it was a point of stillness within an entire electromagnetic torus field or torsion field. So it would be the point in the middle, if you will, when the field comes together. And oftentimes in humans or in beings, you essentially, every being or every sort of unit of matter will have an electromagnetic field that circulates around it with sort of a circulating energy point up and down the middle column. In the human body, it's called the Hara line. But essentially, the center of that point for humans tends to be in the heart center area. So the topic gets into a little bit more from this being's perspective on what the 0 point is. And this is a channeling that I did with Ascended Master Hilarion. And then the second half of it actually addressed a question which I did a video on about 2 videos ago, which is having to do with how to basically stop the incarnation process specifically on Earth. And that was an outstanding question that I'd had for a while. And I'll share with you the content. But if you haven't watched that video, I'll include a link in the description. But it's fascinating and interesting because it actually talks about the mechanics of what's happening with certain cells that originate as you first come into physical form and energetic form, and the role that they play on helping to essentially release, if you will, or stop that cycle that souls go through in reincarnating specifically on Earth. So it addressed that question, but in a slightly different way. Now, at the beginning of sessions like this, sometimes Ascended Master Hilarion will kind of open up with a general phrase, and it has nothing to do with the question that I have. So this is how this particular session that I had with him started. And it's a beautiful phrase, by the way. So the session started by saying, as humbling as the process is to unfold consciousness, equally humbling is the love of all creation. It is awe-inspiring, the liberated vastness and freedom for the many different forms creation takes. So I thought that was beautiful in the sense that, you know, just absolutely awe-inspiring when you kind of look around you in the world or even out in the cosmos or even beyond that into other dimensions that we can't necessarily see with our normal human senses. Just the amount of creation that is in existence, and really to take a step back and really, you know, be awe-inspired by that. And so then I asked the question, what is the 0 point for the in-breath and the out-breath? And the reason for the concept of the in-breath and the out-breath is that oftentimes, even when you kind of think about the breathing process, you know, you're taking an in-breath and then you're pausing and you're breathing out, and then there's a pause. So that's the point, you know, that's the point of you know, kind of, you know, the change over of what's happening, certainly in the rhythm of the breath. But that also, from what I've learned along the way and working with some of these beings, is actually what's happening on sort of macro level basis with, let's say, galaxies, as well as down to the atom level. So that's why I asked the question that way. The answer that I got is the process is the pendulum swinging back and forth. The 0 point is the point of potential energy, the point of stillness and union among the energies, positive and negative, because neither electric nor magnetic energy are in motion. So in other words, it's potential energy. It's not kinetic energy, which would be energy in motion. All beings experience an in-breath and an out-breath. Your quantum particles, your atoms, your avatar body, the Earth, your solar system, and yes, even your galaxy with the galactic center. As the galactic center reaches the 0 point, there is not an ascending or descending, but pure stillness of bliss, emanating with high frequency energies. It is the point of neutrality between all forces. And I think, so that pretty much matches the concept that I opened up with, which is, the in-breath, obviously you're breathing in, and then there's a stillness, you're breathing out, and then there's a stillness, and there's the concept of the pendulum going back and forth. But what they're also saying is that it's really that point where there's neutrality between the forces of energy. So it could be electrical and magnetic energy, positive and negative energy. You're really in that neutral point of all these forces of energy that can be going on, I guess, in physics, as well as what could be coming at you day to day. That could, in some cases, if you're not sort of balanced and neutral, can cause you to swing energetically, emotionally, and physically in different directions. So, you can get out of whack emotionally if you're not balanced in neutrality with all the situations that come at you from your life. But I think the other thing that's said here is that the galaxy essentially goes through that breathing process as well, the in-breath and the out-breath. And, we're essentially in one of those cycles right now in terms of like our experience of Earth in this kind of holographic construct in the galaxy, or, the placement of our solar system in the galaxy. So that's essentially what happens. Now, it was at this point that I didn't necessarily ask the question, but what came out was the concept about, again, reincarnation and tying reincarnation to Earth. So he goes on to say that the reincarnation out of Earth occurs when a being can retain memory beyond the death process, which only occurs when enough light is accreted to the DNA and etheric blueprint. All physical beings have the ability to practice this every sleep cycle through the practice of lucid dreaming. So that's really all that came out on that particular topic, but I thought I'd bring it up because as I was going through all my past readings, I'd forgotten about this one, and I had literally just done a video a couple of weeks ago from a perspective as offered by sort of a collective consciousness. And there they talked very specifically about sort of the mechanics of what's happening in the seed cell that you are born with. So, when like the sperm and the egg come together during the inception of birth, it kind of sparks a light body. That's kind of the integration of where the light body happens. But also, it creates a physical cell that then turns into a zygote, and then obviously into the fetus, I believe it is. There's kind of obviously the stages that go on in a developing child, and then several months into the process, the actual soul starts to integrate in, and it can't do it sooner apparently because the energies are just so strong that the physical body that's developing can't handle the energy and the frequency of that kind of soul energy starting to link in. And so in this particular case, I think in that last video, if you got to go to it, they're basically saying that when that first seed cell emerges, there's a physical cell, but there's also an energetic cell that's kind of like overlaying against it. And within that energetic cell, there's various portals that basically are generated that connect to sort of aspects of the field and aspects of different portals of energy. And I can't remember exactly what they said. But when that happens, those sort of portals that exist in that energetic cell can become blocked over time. Now, part of the blockage can happen because you're kind of taking on some of the energetic blockages that you assume immediately from the blockages that your parents and your ancestors might have taken on. And that's kind of carried out through the DNA. And we assume it to be things like, oh, my parent was a smoker or a drinker, and so I'm naturally inclined to be a smoker or a drinker, or they had cancer, and so therefore I'm naturally inclined to get cancer. Most of those things actually happen because of energy blockages, like they can be emotional blockages or mental blockages that are never cleared, and then become physical blockages that ultimately manifest into the DNA itself, and they get passed down the line. So essentially, if it's not cleared by your ancestors, that's where it starts to pass down the genetic line. And any being has the ability to sort of break the cycle of emotional or mental or even physical attributes. And oftentimes it first starts with the emotional and mental clearing, because that can have an enormous effect on changing the frequency of what's going on in the physical body. And what they're saying, or what they said about the reincarnation process, is that you're working to clear out the blockages, or they call them miasmas, from ancestors. And at the same time, also work on clearing out any sort of blockages, energetic blockages that you have created within your own current incarnation. And when you've done that, you're essentially releasing, releasing that seed cell, so to speak. So, it doesn't kind of maybe perhaps tie you into having to continue sort of karmic patterns that have to be, or energies that essentially have to be balanced out into the future, because for every action there has to be an equal and opposite reaction, and that's just kind of the law of natural laws of physics. So that was one statement. And then here what Hilarion is basically offering is that it occurs when the being can retain memory beyond the death process. So you're kind of going through it, and I guess maybe you're not wiped of memory. You remember it, and that really only occurs when you're getting enough light that is accreting to your DNA. So in other words, the light that your higher sort of your higher bodies, your higher self bodies are carrying into. So your soul, your oversoul, your monad. So when those like outer layers of higher consciousness is starting to come into your body, it starts to have an impact on your DNA. And we also talked about the interactions that has with the sun as well, so that you're starting to essentially transform your DNA, and you're able to essentially accrete more light into the DNA, into the etheric blueprint. So that's what he says is going on. And he says, and oh, by the way, you have the ability to actually practice this every time you go to sleep at night, where you can try and be more conscious in the sleep state and not be as forgetful. Because I think what that means from a sleep body perspective is that you're kind of moving beyond the astral into sort of a higher dimensional plane, even when you're in the sleep state, so that you're very conscious of your decision making, and sort of gaining control over your situation, even in those dimensional consciousness states. So it could be, because obviously I don't remember, because I'm obviously back here, but I've seen situations where, okay, you're in sleep, and then you can catch yourself in situations where things are happening to you in dream time, and like I'll catch the fact and I'll become lucid when some really tough choices are being presented to me that actually can create sort of a cause and effect energy pattern that goes on. And, you know, if you don't catch them, then those are things that are kind of going to have to play out, because it even happens in all dimensions, not just, you know, our physical world as well. So I've been able to catch some instances where I realized that I was being asked to make some bad commitments or do some things that, you know, normally I wouldn't want to do consciously. And then when you catch it, you can sort of put an end to it and get control of the situation, get control of, get control of the choices that, let's say, your higher self would want to make instead of what's happening with your emotional body in the astral state. So that's kind of another example of what he's saying is also occurring as you're trying to kind of end at least the reincarnational pattern here on Earth. And I know a lot of souls have kind of been trapped into the situation because there's a lot of, lower frequency kind of energies that have been playing out on the planet for a while. Just a lot of kind of fear energies that have been playing out for thousands of years. So it has caused a lot of humans, souls, I guess you could say, to sort of, be somewhat trapped into the cycle here. And we have the opportunity to work on ascending our consciousness and by ascending out of that pattern. So that's again, all that really came up in this particular session. But, there was a lot of interesting learnings about the 0 point and another perspective on ending reincarnation specifically on Earth. So with that, I hope you learned another interesting TID point for the future. And I'll continue to see you in future videos, and have a great evening. Bye.